Trey, thanks so much for jumping on here today. Got you on a Friday afternoon, so really appreciate the time. If you would, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. Trey Rome, class of 2008 at SMU, and I am the CEO and founder of Home Tax Solutions.
Perfect. And we were chatting a little bit beforehand, and kind of always start these with an origin story. You're from Houston, Texas. I imagine you probably knew about SMU or had some intel into it, but tell us a little bit about how you found the hilltop and what made that the college choice for you.
Born and raised in Houston, Texas. Went to Memorial High School. There was probably 8 to 10 people in my grade that ended up going to SMU. It was fairly common as a feeder school to SMU, but I was looking at Georgia, I was looking at TCU, I was looking at Boulder. Um, my mother she went to SMU, and so
Okay.
she's definitely encouraged me to go take a look.
Yeah.
And and I got into all the schools, and my very first school that I went to go visit was SMU. And I wish I had a more sophisticated reason, but I started looking around and I saw all the pretty girls, and I was just like, "This is the place for me."
Yep, yep. You're not the first person with that answer.
Yeah,
Campus and
yeah,
student body is definitely a big draw for sure.
yeah, and I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and Cox Business School's amazing and renowned, and I knew I wanted to stay in Texas, and it's got a big draw. The name of the school does, so
And
that obviously went into my decision making.
for
But
sure, and you probably sell yourself a little short knowing that your mom went to SMU. You probably had more subconscious background about why you like the school maybe than
oh
you just
yeah,
stepping
yeah,
on the campus, right?
yeah. I mean,
Um,
at the end of the day, I mean, when I tell people and they're looking around and they ask me for advice, I think SMU's, uh, you know, education is great. I think you get a great education in a lot of different schools. I think what really sets it apart is its network and the community, and the people that you get to know, and it's absolutely incredible. And all of my friends that went there, they've kind of grown up, in our respective jobs together.
mhm.
We're all pretty much a phone call away from anything we need at this point. And a lot of other schools, when I'm talking to kids and they're asking, I'm like, well, a lot of these are college towns, and then you get together and you're great friends, but then you kind of scatter across the country and you lose touch. But whenever you're in a great economy, in a great city, in a great school, and we all stay together and kind of grow up together, there's tremendous value in that.
Yeah, you touched on a question I like to get to, especially for the entrepreneurs, that seems like SMU builds a great base of entrepreneurs, and whether it's risk takers or sophisticated business risk takers. I mean, you were from Houston. Did you think going to SMU you were going to be with a bunch of other Texans, or did you kind of know you would be getting in there and mingling and building a network of folks from California, Chicago, St. Louis, and the Northeast? How did you think about the student body as you came in, and then how did that impact you? I think, as you were kind of alluding to, as a network that grew with you as you expanded through SMU.
Yeah, honestly, it kind of took me by surprise, the amount of people that were from other cities and out of state. I kind of figured it was going to be mostly Texans, to be honest with you. But there's so many people in my fraternity and people that I'm really close with this day that are just from all over the place.
Mhm.
Which, but the great thing is they all stayed in Dallas because the
Right.
economy was big. We all wanted to stay together. So yeah, it was a welcome surprise to see that when we got there.
And so you mentioned coming to school, entrepreneurship was maybe something you had early. What you did you know you wanted to go to the Cox School? Is that what you studied in
Yeah,
finance? Kind of talk
yeah,
about those early
yeah.
years on campus and what you were studying.
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to be in business, and as I alluded to earlier, Cox Business School's fantastic reputation. So I didn't quite know what I wanted to do in business, but I studied for to get a finance degree. I got a minor in economics.
Mhm.
Knew I wanted to do something in finance. So whenever I got out of school, I mean, it was 2008, which is not a great time to be looking for a finance
Right.
job. But I basically was just looking for anything I could to stay in Dallas because I didn't want to go back to Houston, um, and ended up getting into banking. But the reason why I got into banking is because you know, one of the great things about banking is that you get to look at all these different businesses
Mhm.
and models to see kind of how they work and what makes them tick, and figure out, from there, well, okay, I can probably do this better. I find this really interesting. I'm going to go do that. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of like that launching board into something I wanted to do that I knew I wanted to do entrepreneurially.
Yeah, so in 2008, are you thinking were you kind of open to jobs, or was it kinda like, "Hey, banking's the only thing that's hiring?" Was it, "I like real estate, I like private equity," or other things, or was it kinda like, "Hey, let's just get our foot in the door somewhere and
Yeah, I
let things
mean,
kinda go?"
so back then, and I don't know if it's still similar, but Um, there was really kind of 2 paths that the school on at least on the finance side, that they kinda tried to push you down. It was very competitive, and it was investment banking, and that's for
Mhm.
the top tier, grades, and I didn't have that. I had a healthy balance of academics and also, social life,
Yeah.
as an SAE, but, and then there's consulting and again, pretty competitive.
Yep.
Um and coming out in '08, it was even tougher. So
Mhm.
I was definitely I was willing to put in the hours and the time if I had the opportunity to go do investment banking, with the hopes of maybe getting into private equity and having, a little bit more sane hours after you've
Yep.
been through the meat grinder. So that path I was open to. But again, I just kind of wanted to cut my teeth and get experience. Didn't really know what it was. I did know I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My grandfather, who's a big uh, a role model of mine, started a
Mhm.
company, back in right after he got back from World War II, and grew it to be one of the largest oil distribution companies in Texas, and sold it. And so kind of seeing the final stages of that and what he enjoyed from
Yeah.
that was definitely an inspiration for me. So I didn't know. I mean, to answer your question, I
Yeah.
just was kind of looking for a job, and I interviewed. I mean, gosh, I probably had 50 to 60 interviews, and I just sent my
Wow.
resume. I was using Mustang Track, and I was just blasting everybody, that would even talk to me, and, I had some connections at Amegy, and I was able to kinda work those a little bit. Being a Houston bank, my family's from Houston,
Yep.
and we had some inroads there that kind of helped me push through, to the final stages there. But, yeah, to
Yeah.
answer your question, it was really just kinda trying to get
Totally.
it anywhere I could to get the experience.
And did you know you wanted to kinda put a handful of years into corporate America before starting something, or did you have any college businesses that some entrepreneurs had that you were trying? Was how did you, uh, did you
Yeah,
have
I mean,
ideas? You know, you had to pull yourself back on maybe starting something right out the gate to get some real world experience?
I kinda wanted to go earn my badge a little bit and figure out how businesses worked and be in a corporate environment for a little bit. And before in college, I had internships. One of the best internships I had actually, um, was basically cold calling. I was
Mhm.
cold calling for Smith Barney back in Houston, and we would we would get these directories for these oil companies like BP, Exxon, Chevron,
Mhm.
and Smith Barney basically manages 401ks. That was kind of the group that I was in, and
Yeah.
and they brought me in and a few other guys, to basically call down this directory, and if identify people that were between the ages of 60 and 65 about to retire,
Yeah.
and then the goal was to get them to come to this party that they hosted with drinks and all that, and, they knew that if they got them to come to this party and had this speaker, that they would get a few of those to roll their 401k over, and so
Mm.
I just dialed for dollars all day, every day, and really figured out how to get over the fear of rejection and talking to strangers and figuring out what works, how to adapt to the
Yeah.
conversations and situations. And even though it wasn't, you didn't have to use a whole lot of analytical brain power. The social, the emotional, social side, I think, is so important and kind of ignored. But I think
Absolutely.
it's extremely important to success. And so I really did enjoy that internship.
No, I think, yeah, I think cold calling is something maybe everyone should try, even for if it's for a few months.
Yeah.
Um, so before we get into kind of life at Amegy, thinking back what you know now, what advice do you have for those folks who are graduating, thinking about, hey, maybe I'm not getting the job I ideally want, market conditions are tough, and those who are like, you know, I want to start a company. I want to be my own owner and business owner one day. Like maybe it doesn't have to be at age 22, right? Kind of what's some of
Yeah.
the advice you've learned that you would pass to a younger Trey?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when I'm thinking back when I was in that boat, like, I said yes to everything. I think that's important. I mean, to open every door you can, plant as many seeds as you can,
Mhm.
really never know, what connection and I've been so surprised about just the most trivial things that I didn't think would amount to anything that really was life-changing for me, and it's
Mm.
just because I put myself out in different situations, and you may be tired and not wanna, go to that networking event, and it's like, I don't really have to go, um, but there's so much that can come from that, and so just being out there, knowing people, talking to people, going to happy hours, um, standing out, if you meet someone, write them a handwritten thank you note. Just go
Yeah.
kind of that extra step to just set yourself apart a little bit. Reach out to as many people as you can, and even if you haven't talked to them, ping them every month or two, and just say, "Hey, read this article was thinking about you." Just kind of
Yeah.
stay on everybody's radar and plant as many seeds as you can, because that's really what's gonna, I think, set you apart and just give you as much opportunity as possible. And like, look, like we'd all love to just start have the next whiz bang idea and start
Yep.
a extremely successful company and not have to put the time in. But I mean, the reality is a lot of times, you got to go out there, you got to learn, you got to fail, and I think failing's important too. And when the time is right, it'll be right. But you got to just stick with it, keep your head down, and work hard, and just put yourself out there.
Yeah, I like that the advice of staying connected with those people from, time you're in school to I mean, that 10 years out of school is a unique time, right? Everyone's trying to figure it out. You don't know what everyone's gonna turn out to be or do, but you stay in touch with them, right? The next person you know is the lender at the place that's gonna fund your company or invest in it, right? And, I think that's good advice that people can kinda lose sight of. You get so focused in running your own race, uh, kinda staying connected, staying top of mind has some value over the long haul. So you get to Amegy. Tell us about life there. What roles did you take? How much
Yeah,
did you kinda imagine yourself staying there? Or did you kinda have a journal the whole time where you're like, "Okay, I'm looking at all these different businesses. I like something about this. I like something about that," ready
yeah,
to
exit off the days
jump
on the
on?
wall. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, yeah. So time at Amegy was great. I mean, what Amegy does, and there's very few banks that do this still to this day. I think it's so valuable. Is they have this training program. It's a officer training program, and it's
Mhm,
basically credit training, and you get to go and learn, the accounting, how businesses work. And I went down to Houston, and sat in a classroom with a lot of people that just graduated, just like me.
mhm,
And we had think we had in our class, we had 25, candidates, and, just given the nature of what was happening in the economy, it got by the end, it was, got cut in half, basically.
wow,
I made it through, thankfully, but, um, so I went down to Houston for that credit training program with the hopes of going back to Dallas, and,
mhm,
one of the buildings back there is where we're headquartered, in the Harwood district, at Amegy, and basically just went through and rotated around the different groups and did real estate and commercial, middle market, uh, corporate group, um, private wealth, and
mhm,
you kind of go to these different groups. If they like you and you like them, then you can kind of stick to that group and kind of form your
yeah,
career there. And at Amegy back then, and they were really trying to grow their commercial book. And for that, you got to have people that aren't afraid to get out there, cold call,
yep,
develop relationships, and so they really wanted me in the commercial and middle market group. So I started there, and at one point they were trying to grow the Oklahoma market. So I was on a Southwest plane every morning, and
oh, wow,
trying to go call on companies up in Oklahoma and take that Southwest flight back, and um, that in the evenings. And so it was a lot of work. It was a lot of fun. A lot of people my age that were there, and so it was a great transition from college. Um, and yeah, as I what was great again about it is that you got to take a look whenever you're looking at these credit write ups. You got to take a look
mhm,
at how these things work and how the bank thinks about risk. and you really from a banker's perspective, you kind of think about what can go wrong.
Mhm.
Um, so if you stay in banking too long, you can get a little jaded.
Yeah.
You got to get out of there at the right time. But um, yeah, I had a ton of great experience, and that kind of segues into how I started home tax.
Yeah. So, I mean,
But
did you think about I mean, you put in 4.5 years, right, at Amegy? I mean,
yeah, right.
yeah, is that something you thought about, "Hey, I could work my way up and this is a good life and I'm good at what I do, I connect with people," or was it always, "Hey, I don't wanna get too comfortable here because I wanna keep challenging myself or and find
Yeah,
something I can
yeah.
build?"
I mean, to be completely candid, you know, I looked at my older peers that were there, and they lived a comfortable life, but I was like, I just wanted more. You
Yeah.
know, it's a comfortable life and it's a great career. I'm not knocking any bankers at
Right.
all. I think it's a great profession, but for me, I wanted to go. I'm a builder. I felt this innate urge to go build
Mhm.
something. Um, and I said, look, like, if it doesn't work, there's always going to be banking, and it's always going to
Right.
be, and I could always go
Yeah.
back. I realized, as I was getting to be 24, 25 years old, I was like, well, I've met a girl that I really like. I may get married to her. I may start having kids. And so each year you wait, the harder and harder it gets because you kind of have these handcuffs and obligations and
Yeah.
mortgages and kids and private schools. And so I was like, if now's it's, if there's never a great time, but if there's
Yeah.
ever it's now. And so that's
Right.
kind of what spurred me
It
to really do that.
it's funny you say those ages because I imagine at the time you're like, "Oh, I'm getting old, I gotta do this," and you look back now and you're like, "I was a kid coming up with starting
Yeah.
this thing," right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what was lay it out for us. Home tax is what you ended up building, but was that because I mean, you spent 4 years analyzing businesses, probably seeing a whole different, you know, vast array of ideas or kind of industries that worked? Were you at home each night kind of researching different ideas, or did you have one that stuck to you? Did you know it wanted to fit in a certain category? Give me kind of the early stages that then ultimately led you to, maybe that first light bulb was, "All right, let's go run this idea down first."
Yeah. I mean, I think it was like, it's the main credential in my book was like, all right, is there a problem and can I fix it? And is there a company out there that may already be doing it, but can I do it better?
Mhm,
And I'm a big risk return guy, and I was like, okay, well, if I start this business, obviously it's risky, but what is the return? Can I minimize the risk and maximize the return?
mhm,
Uh, those are big sort of like credentials that I was looking for and all these things. And I at the same time, it's like, okay, well, how can I start a business and scale it without having a huge balance sheet behind me? Because
mhm, mhm,
I didn't. Um, so I'd have to roll up my sleeves and kind of
yeah,
bootstrap the thing. And so those are kind of all like the little caveats that I had. And I would go home at night and I was very driven, and I would read all these books about
mhm,
how to start businesses and listen to all these podcasts and all
yeah,
that. Very I always had that urge and really wanted to go. But I think from a risk return perspective, that was kind of a main a main caveat. And a lot of these companies, I ended up in the middle market, sort of doing like the private equity buy and sell side on the
yeah,
banking. These are nice, well established businesses, and a lot of them were just widget makers and
mhm,
manufacturers, things like that.
mhm,
Um, but I kinda wanted to something that was just a little bit different. Maybe it was a little esoteric. Maybe it was something that was kind of ignored, that not a whole lot of people knew about, maybe had a little bit of a barrier to entry,
mhm.
uh, with, uh, with that risk return thing I was talking about too.
So, were there, like, 3 finalists of kind of, like, these ideas that you were thinking pursuing, or tell us how the tax
I
solutions
just
kind of
I
idea
I
came
always
about?
thought, I was like, "I'm gonna know when I know," and there wasn't
Yeah,
really some business case where I was whiteboarding and,
yeah,
I was like, "Okay, we're gonna go to that." I just knew right away. It's kinda like when, you meet your wife. It's like, that's the
yep,
one.
yep,
There's just no question. And yeah, well, in this specific scenario, uh, I was an analyst working on this deal. We had a $20 million participation in this large syndicated facility for
mhm,
property tax lending group. And at first I was just like, at first I thought it was crazy. I was like, what bank would lend money to a company that lends money to people that can't pay their property taxes? I thought it was
right,
like insane. Um, but the more I looked into it, I was just like, whoa, this is, first of all, a huge need in Texas.
okay,
Property taxes are, as a percentage of income, are way outpacing increases in income. So people that are having a tough time paying their taxes it's a big need.
Yep.
Okay, there's a need there. I'm helping people, so I'm helping people stay in their homes. I'm helping them
Mhm.
avoid all the penalties and interest from the county. Helping people, it's a great market. And then from the risk return perspective, still to this day, I've never found anything better. Um, because you're taking the county's tax lien as your collateral,
Right.
and then and so you're first in line, and then you can basically lever most of it on the backside. So from a capital perspective, I could do that because I you
Yeah.
don't have a ton capital
Yeah.
behind you because you can lever most. So I was like, this is an incredible deal. So I put a business plan together, um, and
And you learned all about kind of this diligence from that working
yeah, just
case?
kinda read through the write-up, and I was like, this is a cool deal," and I did
Interesting.
my I did my, um I went and called the competitors and kinda did my
Yeah, yeah.
diligence there, and,
How
like, I
how
remember
big how big was the competitive space that you felt was there? Who was doing it well? I mean, you mentioned.
yeah, there's a handful, back then it was probably 10 or so, there's been a lot of consolidation since, but I remember calling, and one of them I was there, pretending like I was a client and,
Yep.
or prospect, and I was like, "Hey, I'm interested in your service." And they're like, "Okay, well, why don't you just fax me why don't you print out the application and fax it to me?"
Mhm.
And I was like, "Okay, these guys are just, like, prehistoric.
Right.
Can
Right.
blow the box off.
Yeah.
This is crazy." So, yeah, there's definitely those guys, a lot of those companies were built in the early 2000s, and, like,
Yeah.
having the ability to come in and build on fresh technology platform that I understand technology pretty well. I think I
Yeah.
can do it cheaper, leaner, and better. Uh, so, yeah, I went and put this business plan together in front of we've got a small family office in Houston,
Yeah.
and asked my dad for $200,000, in the form of a loan, and, thankfully, he said okay, and just got started on my kitchen counter,
Wow.
and I was moonlighting. I mean, I was still working at the bank, and,
And
uh
what oh, you were still working at the bank while you
yeah,
got it up and running? I
I
love
mean,
that.
I was doing everything.
Yeah.
I was working late hours, but, I was sending out I would back up my pickup truck full of mailers and
Yeah.
go to the mail house and design the mail there and give them the
No
list,
way.
and then I'd be taking the
So
sales calls during.
what was that initial, investment for? It was for marketing materials, like website, a little bit of
Yeah,
tech in the back end, or kinda what were
yeah.
what was the first kind of
It
working
was
product that you had to put together?
servicing software, because you have to service the loans, website, had to go buy a computer,
Yep.
had to get an office I mean, all the just basic, basic stuff, um, and the name Home Tax Solutions was actually already taken, and
Really?
that's the name that I had fallen on, and some guy
Yeah.
out in, like, North Carolina owned the domain, and I called the guy up, and I was like, "Hey, man, like, I really wanna buy your website." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I don't really use it anymore." He's like, "Give me a couple $100 and it's yours." So, thankfully, I was able to buy it.
Seriously. And so what
But
did you know about kind of the addressable market at the time? Like, how many people were kind of struggling to pay their property taxes? I know you mentioned the increases in property taxes relative to income. You felt that there was a
yeah,
disparity there. Kind of
yeah,
what was that kind of like addressable market that kind of got you excited for what you could, again, you mentioned risk reward, the high upside for this.
yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, just seeing the growth of the company that we were banking, and seeing, all the opportunity that they had, Uh, it back at the time, of course, we know now, but, I didn't have all the figures of the total, delinquent taxpayers in
Mhm.
Texas or any of
Mhm.
that. I just knew there was ten 10 companies out there. They were blowing and going,
Mhm.
and they weren't doing as good of a job as I could have done, and I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna go out there, and if they can do it, I can do it." And so I probably
Wow.
should have done a little more homework, and glad it worked out,
Hey,
but,
you got
uh,
to get in there. So
yeah.
you raise the money, you kind of know how you're going to go about doing this. What's the kind of first 180-day strategy? You're still working. I got to do this in the off hours. I got to get 5 customers. I've just got to go through one customer start to finish and get them signed up and kind of understand that process.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first customer, and what were those first few months like?
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember my first customer. Yeah, I honestly, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I went in there head first, and I just was problem solving on the go, and, like, we launched in 2011, we're regulated, so I had to apply for my license, and that took a
Mhm.
little while, and I got I got fully licensed and ready to go. And we launched in July, and I didn't realize this, but in our industry, it's seasonal, and you basically do all most of your production in January through June,
Mm,
because of the way the penalty structure works. And so,
okay.
launching in July is like not
Worst
ideal.
time. Like, where is everyone?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, but, I would send out a couple of thousand pieces of mail that I designed with my sister to help me kind of put the
Yeah.
copy together because she was in marketing at the time, uh,
And
I'd
were
get a
these
few phone
targeted
calls.
zip codes or just kind of, like, spraying them out to wherever you could go? Was
Yeah,
there
so
is there a
it's
certain
public
are you
information,
okay.
so I was able to, get the delinquent tax roll for, I think it was the first one I did was just Dallas,
Okay.
and, sent it out in July, and I think I got maybe 2 or 3 phone calls from it,
So
and
you so you're targeting the actual person who's delinquent,
correct.
saying, "Hey, I'm Trey at Home Tax Solutions. I'm here to help you," and
Yeah, right. Because in
following up that
Texas,
route.
what happens in Texas is, um, there's no state income tax here, right? And so the counties and the fire departments, police departments, hospitals, schools, they get their funding from property taxes,
Yep.
and they have to get all their money in, and it's all due by the end of January. February 1st, you get a 7% penalty. Each month thereafter, it's 2%, 2%, 2%.
Oh
Then you
my
get to
gosh.
July, and it's another 20% penalty, and then the
Oh my
county
god.
will hand the account over to collection attorneys, and then that's when they start, like, harassing and the foreclosure process, and these people
Oh my gosh.
can lose their homes if they don't pay their taxes. So essentially, from February to July, your tax bill goes up like 1.5 times.
Wow.
So it's a really tough hole to climb out of if you don't have the money to
Yeah.
pay it. And we simply come in and pay the county directly, and then put them on a repayment plan with our
Yep.
company. That whenever they get the money to pay us back, they pay us back, and it's simple. And our
That's
interest rate
amazing.
are low teens, and it's um, a lot cheaper than putting on a credit card or anything,
For
anything else.
sure.
So, yeah, definitely.
Was that kinda your understanding the whole time going into this, or you kinda built this in blocks as you kinda got a better feel for the
Oh, yeah, no,
industry?
I knew the problem. I knew the case
Yeah.
study there. I knew that
Okay.
there's a very compelling, reason to go get a tax loan if you're in that bind, and I also knew that we knew exactly who they were, so it's very targeted, audience
Yep.
that needs the help, right? So you're not just talking to everybody, it's like
Yeah.
talking exactly to the person who needs your service, and you're doing them a good service.
And I imagine this is a very personal, kind of like intimate problem that these people are having. They're worried about their home, very stressful. Those How are you converting these folks who are, very concerned about the problem they're in to go with you, a new company in those early days?
Yeah. Well, I think in the early days, we had to pretend like we weren't a brand new small
Right,
company, you
right.
know?
That's part of what I'm asking, how did you
Yeah.
sell that narrative?
Yeah, yeah, we really I think I used, like, those these stock photos of
Yeah,
corporate offices, and I had,
right, right.
my first address, I completely forgot about this. My first address was, a PO box, but it looked like an office address in Highland Park Village,
Love it.
because they offer that like a UPS does. It looked
Yeah,
like
okay,
a
okay. Yeah,
you know
yeah, yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah. So, people, I guess, thought maybe I was legit. I was
Official?
really just
Yeah,
working off my kitchen counter.
yeah,
But I could sell, I could talk to people, and I could generally just get them comfortable by talking to them over the phone, and I
yep,
generally knew what I was talking about. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. At the end of the day, these folks, it's a very personal, intimate asset. They don't want to lose their home, and they
mhm,
want to trust the people that they're doing business with, because it is their home, right? And so I think the very first hurdle you have to kind of get over with these folks is like, look, you can trust us. We check out our Google reviews, check out our
yep,
BBB. You know, um, we're part of our industry association. Go check out our industry association and
Yep.
get all the feedback that you need to get comfortable. But now, of course, it's much easier, having been around. We're the largest player,
Right.
and all that. But before,
See,
we kind of had to play around that.
totally.
Yeah.
So you get going, you get these first few customers, you know, bought in you. So essentially, is there a capital constraint in how you're scaling? Right, you're buying off these people's property tax, value right out the gate, or you mentioned being able to put some debt on that. Was How did you go from okay, I have some technology advantage. I'm building a more modern company in this. You resonate with these folks. You care. You want to, help them. And now it's how do I turn 5 customers into 500 into thousands and grow this thing? How did
Yeah.
that evolve? And what kind of things did
Yeah.
you learn
So,
along the way?
I mean, at the end of the day, like, so what happened was, I ended up calling the industry association, which now I lead. It's called the Texas
Yeah.
Property Tax Lien Association. But I called them and I said, "Hey, I need an attorney, to kind of help me generate these loan documents."
Yeah.
And I was under the impression that I was just going to get a boilerplate loan
Yeah.
document and
Yeah.
do it
Yeah.
myself.
I didn't even think
Turns
of that.
out you need like full title team and full
Right.
attorneys actually
Right.
doing each transaction. But I talked to this firm here in town, and they agreed to help me, and they were very good. They helped me, from start to finish, kind of understand all the pitfalls, what I needed to do, what I needed to look out for on the underwriting. So they were very, very helpful. And they ended up actually putting me in touch with, um, uh, who's now my neighbor, but a guy that was a consultant of mine, and I basically cold called him out of the white pages after they told me
Right.
his non-compete was done, and he was done being with this competitor that he was there
Okay.
for a long time. He had his own property tax lending company. They got bought by the competitor. He was there for a while and then decided to leave and had a 1-year NDA burn off. And so
Okay.
the timing worked out perfect where that burn off happened. I needed help scaling. I needed to get bigger. I was starting to get
Yep.
some more loans in.
Yep.
I tried going to the bank myself to say, "Hey, I need money," and this is 25-year-old, 26-year-old kid,
Yeah.
brand new business with no profitability. I couldn't even get a meeting. So, um, when I when I was able to get this consultant to come with me and help me, he was older. He's been through it. He had a bald head, which helped him, with these bankers,
Yeah.
and so at that point, I was actually able to get meetings, and I was able to get my first line of credit. And I remember going in, I needed 3 million. Um, and then we reran the numbers, and after rerunning them, we're like, no, we're gonna need five. And so before
Wow.
we even closed, we upsized to five, which I've never even heard of. But somehow, I was very thankful. Plug for BTH Bank. They've now been bought by Origin, but BTH Bank really helped us out at the very beginning and probably gave us a loan when we didn't deserve it, but gave it to us based on our character. And
And
uh,
how soon after founding it was that were those terms kinda in
that
that
was
lending?
probably around 12 months after,
Wow.
I'd burned through the 200,000
Yep.
and needed some bank debt to go scale.
Right. Right. That's incredible. I mean, that's
Yeah,
fast.
yeah,
So, thank you again for sharing all the ins and outs of that and the starting. Where are you guys at today? I mean, I know you skipped 10 plus years, right? But,
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
where have you taken it to? I mean, from that early $5 million loan and bank commitment to
yeah,
I think we were talking, you got 30 plus employees now and
yeah,
all over Texas.
yeah, yeah, we got loans all over in every county in Texas. We've got we're headquartered here in Dallas, right across the street from SMU, in Energy Square. We're the largest property tax lender in the state and have been for the last 7 years.
Jeez.
We got a servicing office down in San Antonio, loan production office down in McAllen, and some remote workers scattered around. But the majority of folks are here in Dallas. Yeah, it's been a wild ride. We've basically scaled up using bank lines and a mezz fund as a
Mhm,
friends and family mezz fund that sat
mhm,
underneath the
mhm.
bank to kind of grow. And then we got to a point back in 2021 where we went and securitized our entire portfolio in the capital
Wow.
market. So did that. Timing couldn't have been better, and we got a really great rate on that. And then so simultaneously from there, we've had another warehouse line that we've kind of grown the company with, and we're about to uh, probably go back and do another deal again in the capital markets. So uh,
Amazing.
yeah, it's
Has the business model changed at all in that time? Is it still, service and pretty similar to what you were offering in those first couple of years? Has it evolved? Are there new product lines?
yeah.
Um,
Um, I think, the core product is the same. I think where we've gotten better is, um, our processes and how we do things, our marketing, our ability to offer much cheaper, products than our competitors based on how we're capitalized.
nice.
So that's been very nice. And our people are just absolutely incredible. We've got a it's very cliche to say like culture, but like
It's
I
huge.
really do believe, it's like one of the things that I think sets us apart is like I care about my employees first and the clients
Mhm.
second. And like if the people here that come to work every day are happy, I know my clients are going to be happy. And so I
Right.
focus all my time and attention on our people because that's our most valuable asset. They walk in the door and they walk out. You want them to come back, walk back in. And so we've
That's
developed a really
amazing.
good like a really good family atmosphere around here
And
at the company.
and and you probably can't scale as fast as you did if you're having to retrain and rehire employees all the time.
Yeah.
We've taken a good bit of your time here, but, like, from a concept to founding a company to, mention rolling your sleeves up in the early days of it being almost a one-man shop, how did you evolve as a leader to be, you're self-motivated, you know what you wanted, you were, aspirational. How have you learned to kind of spread that among your team and now know to get bigger to be, I mean, did you ever imagine you were going to be the Texans' biggest,
No, never in my
right?
wildest
Like,
dreams.
uh,
Yeah.
what was there any kind of thing that you can kind of point back to that helped you as a leader, as a CEO, or is that something kind of every day you're working on?
Yeah. I mean, I still, delegating for me was tough because, like, I like being involved. I've done every single thing in this company, and
Right.
so, like, know how to do it, and so letting go of specific pieces was tough, but very important, and I think, like, hiring people that are smarter than you, that you can trust and delegate to is, like, super important because then you can focus on really the value add pieces of the business other than just the day-to-day operations.
Yeah.
So I for a long time, I struggled kind of relinquishing that, but we've got an amazing leadership team now here that um, is able to run with the ball and follow up with all the things that need to be done and so it really kind of allows me to go out there and focus on the real big initiatives, which has been a lot of fun. It's been a fun
Yeah.
mission for me.
And those next phase of initiatives, is it growth through acquisition? Do you guys go to different states? What does the next 5 to 10 years look like for you
Yeah,
guys?
I
Uh,
think from just a general market perspective in Texas, I think there's a lot of growth to be had here, just in
mhm.
in the demand for our product and kind of where we are in the cycle and what we've seen with the delinquent tax roll. So, continuing to grow there organically and through market share. I think acquisitions are always interesting. So those are always on the table. Other states are also interesting. Business models very different though in other states. There's not
Mm,
the way that Texas is set up is very unique in that, a third party can go pay someone's taxes in exchange for a tax money transfer. Most other states, you can go bid and buy the actual liens from the county itself without even talking to the property owners. So it's a
mm,
very, very different business, but one that we've been entertaining and looking at. It's a close cousin. So there's that. We've got aspirations to do more commercial real estate loans, just
okay.
traditional commercial real estate. Um, so we're working on scaling that up right now. We've got partnerships with property tax valuation companies where they can reduce valuations, so we can kind of be a one stop shop there.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of things that we're looking at and
Exciting.
growing into.
Now does it feel like it was only 12 years ago, 13 years ago that you started all this, or is it a little bit of both? It feels like a lifetime and it was just yesterday?
Yeah, I mean it's been it does feel like a long time because I mean there's been so much that's happened. And the hard thing about this business is it's really tough to scale because our
Mhm.
average loan
I
is 10,
imagine.
$11,000. So growing this business to where it is, we have to do it one loan at a time. And it's just, you got to be very disciplined, and it's a lot of work. So it's very rewarding now, but it definitely, early on took its toll. And you have to make sacrifices in different places, and like it wasn't easy. Starting a marriage, starting a
Right.
company, and having to try to figure out where to prioritize your time, um, and so kind of making up for it now, but at the very beginning, it was pretty challenging.
I imagine. Well, Trey, thank you for telling this story. I'm excited to have you back on here, maybe for phase two as you guys continue to expand and grow. And I know you mentioned you got SMU interns at the company, and you're always hiring through there and involved in a bunch of boards. So we're proud to have you as an SMU alum, and encourage those listening to reach out to you. I know you're really generous with your time. But thanks again for hopping on, and excited to share this story with everyone.
Mitchell, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be on the show, and yeah, anything I can ever do for SMU, I owe the school so much. They've given me what feels like everything I have, so I'd love giving back wherever I can, and I do appreciate your time, Mitchell. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you on the boulevard here.
Yes, sir.
See you,
See you
Trey.
soon.
Thank you to our incredible sponsors, Security National Bank, Hilltop Property Tax, Mignon Steakhouse, Sound of a Rose podcast, and the SMU's Cox School of Business for making this all possible.